All right, greetings and salutations to all my beloved flying monkeys. And what up to any Damar Hamlin fans? So, as we wait for everybody to plug in, fire up. John Paul, good to see you.
Good morning, Johnny. How are you, man?
I've been better, but it's good to be. It's good to be where I'm at. It's good to be where I'm at. All right, so as we're waiting, William, let me nail these first.
Greetings.
Before Zach shows up, I had forgotten to remind him. He's like Washington State, isn't he? He's not far from the young man I almost adopted. Pretty sure he's out that way. So I forgot to remind him that when I said 11 a.m., I meant Eastern Standard. So in the meantime, we're going to fire this up. Oh, wow. Did I not leave that up as a tab? That's obnoxious. So, Jake the asshole has said some not very nice things about Zach. Don't know that it's entirely warranted. In the meantime, I will say that Jake, the reason why Jake, he's done some great things, but he's not particularly professional. And as a result, he's not precise with his language. He's sometimes... Okay, Johnny gets emotional, but I think I do a decent job of not making errors in emotion. Whereas Jake the asshole can use hyperbole and exaggeration because he's not trying to be precise, which is absolutely critical. As if you want people to consider you an investigative journalist, and let's step back, big picture. Who is an investigative journalist? Anybody that fucking wants to be. But what sets you apart is your reputation. So you have to take accreditation and wipe your ass with it. To wipe your ass. Go ahead, John.
Call himself the asshole in the first place. Wasn't it the flat Earth asshole in the first place? It's like, that's not doing anything for skeptics' mind.
Right,
off the bat.
Right. If you're trying to win people,
yeah,
I'm not quite sure where you're going with that. Excuse me. So it's okay. He can be the blue collar skeptic, and that's fine. There's a role for that. But when it comes to winning the information war, it's an ancillary role. It's a sideshow, which is what Jake is. He's a bit of a sideshow with his silly hat, and as one of my beloved fly monkeys had said, hey, I saw this guy begging for donations for pot money. Okay. That's fine. And that's fine. I mean, listen, people don't realize that there is a role for, and I don't have the money. I don't have the money for a fucking studio and a suit and a tie every day. I wish I did. This is what we get. Me in my bat cave with the fucking weights and the awards behind me. Okay? This is where we're at. I hope to validate what we do with names, places, and dates. And I think we do a pretty darn good job of that. So, the upside of Jake being Jake is if you get on Jake's shit list, he does come after you hard. And I didn't realize this until this came up in the queue. He's been tracking Jaronism Campanella. Boy, I'm sorry about that. Club soda before the show. Sorry about that. Wasn't it with Jaron? Yeah, that's right. Jaron and Rob Skiba together mocking me for blaming Jesuits for what's going on. I've got that somewhere. Two of the biggest shills out there. And I'm very grateful to Jake the asshole for this clip. Because this shows beyond a shadow of a doubt that Jaronism Campanella is absolutely controlled opposition. Check this out.
So there's 14 games on Sunday, 14 NFL games. So the best that somebody's going to do would be to pick 8 of 14 games correctly, or 7 of 13 games correctly. It'd be very rare if somebody went 9 of 14. Nobody goes 10 of 14, 11 of 14. That gets out of hand. 7 of 13, again, somebody might do 8 of 13. They're never going to do 9 of 13.
That is a bold-faced lie. There are plenty of people who have bet 14 games and won 10 or more. Now, it isn't probable, but you're making it out like it's impossible. That isn't the case at all. There are regular, everyday fans who have gotten lucky and hit 14 out of 14 games. Now again, just because it's not probable doesn't mean it's impossible. Jaron is clearly lying to his audience when he says nobody ever hits 10 out of 14 games. Oh,
All right, so what's going on here is that Jake gets into the weeds because Jake obviously does this, or is at the bare minimum, Jake is in on how to gamble. Okay, Jake knows how to gamble, as I'm sure Zach does too. Okay.
Oh yeah. I mean, the prominence of the gambling aspect of the whole study of it is what makes it not as redeeming, not as valuable to a walk with the good Lord. And not that those guys are into that either. But anyway, sorry. Go ahead, John.
Well, yeah, not at all. I am absolutely amazed. Nothing could say machine bitch better than Jaron Campanella putting so much effort into telling his audience, oh, no. Professional sports games are not fixed. Meanwhile, so who is allowed to tell us the truth? Who is allowed to tell us the truth? Irish Roman Catholics like, what's his name? Brian Toohey? Touy. Oh, look at that. I've asked for that before.
Mm-hmm. He published the book about it, and they had him on like television talking about it even.
All right, I don't need you to see my freaking Leviathan account, my personal Leviathan account. Yeah, so Larceny Games. Fantastic book. Brian Toohey. Do I have it? I don't know if I have it. I will get it. Larceny Games. That's just like 3 felonies a day with the Jewish guy. Everybody commits 3 felonies a day no matter what you do. No matter, there's so many laws in the books. So, go ahead.
I think that Toohey had a good interview on like a mainstream television show that broadcast television, where he sort of is interviewed thoroughly about that, publishing that book, and gives a lot of great examples.
Outstanding.
Zach may well know about him. There he is.
Zach, are you familiar with Brian Toohey's book, Larceny Games, on how there are no consequences for fixing either a professional or a college game? Great book.
I am aware of the book, but I have not read it.
Yeah, me neither. I just know there's a book out there on how there's no law against fixing a game, right. and this is the what is so valuable about what you do is it gets people asking questions about mainstream professional sports. And my goodness, do people vest themselves in this stuff? People are deeply vested. The Damar Hamlin thing. Clearly, the machine knows that, and this is why I put such high value on your work to get people to ask these questions.
Yeah, thanks again for having me on, and sorry for being a little bit tardy.
Don't worry about it. I was a little late myself. I was a few minutes afterwards. So, deeply excited to have my friend Zachary K. Hubbard on, guys. GematriaEffectNews. Good grief, pal. You're on your 25th YouTube. That's just insane. I don't know how you keep track of all them freaking Gmail accounts.
I don't. It's a problem.
Yeah. So, the putting numbers together as to show, one of the reasons why I really am grateful for Zach and Zach's work is that, to me, he's shown that as people grow and people look at big picture stuff, you look back at my work, I was quite the conservatard. I was quite the Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity conservatard. And I grew out of that because obviously that's a psyop. I think it's safe to say that Zach has had a similar journey in a different manner, and is just laser focused on Jesuits and Rome. And I think that's proves his legitimacy. So, anything that you want to bring, Damar Hamlin, Super Bowl, any of that stuff, I really think that is there any go-to things, Zach, that you use to just throw out there and say, just stop. It's so totally, it's obviously fixed.
just to echo your sentiments about the Jesuits, the big clue for what this year's Super Bowl was going to be took place August 24th, 2022, and that was the day Len Dawson, the former Chiefs Super Bowl winning quarterback, died on Kobe Bryant Day. And Len Dawson did start his career in Pennsylvania. Of course, Kobe's from Philadelphia. But the day Len Dawson died was exactly 172 days before the Super Bowl. And again, gematria, the Kabbalistic practice of coding numbers into words, the Jesuit motto ad merum Dei gloriam adds up to 172. And so does the name Kansas City Chiefs, 172. Andy Reid's son, who died years ago, Garrett Reid, also adds up to 172. And he just happened to be born on the 103rd day of the year. Jesuits equals 103, but this was the 103rd NFL season, which concluded in State Farm Arena, and State Farm equals 103. And Patrick Mahomes, who does the commercials, came in 10-3 in terms of his playoff career into the Super Bowl. Talk about why he advanced 11-3. But the Len Dawson death on Kobe Bryant Day, again, was the huge clue. Recall when Kobe Bryant died, it was by the numbers. On his 41st day, or on the 41st day of the Pope's age while traveling from Catholic Mass. In Gematria, Kobe Bryant's 41 as his Super Bowl. But when Kobe died, he finished his career wearing the number 24. Patrick Mahomes won the Super Bowl the next weekend, the next Sunday, at age 24. This year, Len Dawson died on the 24th of August, 24 days before Mahomes' birthday. And then he faced 24-year-old Jalen Hurts in the Super Bowl, Philadelphia's quarterback. And, of course, when you think of 24, you think of the hours in a day measured by the sun. And, of course, the Catholic Church is a sun cult. And the Jesuits' logo is the sun, which in Gematria, funny enough, the sun does equal 24, like the 24 hours in a day. But that death of Len Dawson is what foretold the Super Bowl. And then making matters even more interesting, the city of Kansas City was established June 1st, 1850. So it's 172 years old and change at the time of the Super Bowl. Wow. And the big star for the Chiefs, Travis Kelce, his name also equals 172. And I mean, there's a lot of numbers I could list off, but just the themes with this Super Bowl. Abe Lincoln. This was the first ever NFL Super Bowl on Abe Lincoln's birthday. And I'm sure Johnny's talked about it many times before. The assassin who's kind of been removed from the history books, John Surratt, the Jesuit, and they killed his mother instead. And what's funny about Super Bowl 57 falling on Abe Lincoln's birthday is in Gematria, Abe Lincoln equals 57. So does Emancipation. You might have seen Will Smith put out a movie, Emancipation, right before the Super Bowl. He's from Philadelphia. The owner of the Chiefs, 57 years old at the time of the Super Bowl. The governor of Missouri right now, the 57th governor of the state, just happens to have the exact same birthday as Patrick Mahomes. Len Dawson, who they sacrificed at the beginning of the year, drafted in 57, retired in 75. Patrick Mahomes picked up his 75th career win in the game. And
of course, Zach, this was the first battle of the non-white quarterbacks. Kansas City, you've talked about this. I was unaware of this until a fan pointed me back to your work on this. This is crazy. If this is true, this is just really creepy. A former Chiefs quarterback, Alex Smith, with the weird leg breaking, and Joe Theismann. When I was actually following this, I was a Washington fan, so I'm very familiar with this. Now that we have the Washington military-industrial complexers, aka commanders, really, really creepy. I mean, would they actually break a guy's leg just to come in with their numbers? That's evil.
It was Namath in attendance at that game as well.
Wow.
Not Namath, it was Joe Theismann.
Oh, Theismann.
Alex Smith. Yeah, it was an amazing coincidence, if you believe in such things, because Joe Theismann was at the game, and after Alex Smith broke his leg, they interviewed Joe Theismann. He said it was creepy, and he said, what else is weird is I also have a nephew named Alex Smith. But Alex Smith broke his leg in the same way, on the exact same hash mark that Alex Smith did 33 years to the day earlier. And that was November 18th, the 322nd day of the year. And I remember I was kind of just mind blown by the whole thing because it looked like his leg really did break. And then years later, Something similar happened in the NBA playoffs for the Phoenix Suns down on the 33rd parallel. The owner of the Suns, Jerry Colangelo, his wife was sitting courtside with a white T-shirt on with a big picture of Steve Nash, the basketball player's face, with a broken nose, a bleeding broken nose. That was her shirt that she was wearing. And then their star player, Devin Booker, got his nose broken in that same game while she's sitting courtside with that shirt on with 3:22 on the clock. And I mean, the impact happens at right with 3:22 on the clock, kind of like how Alex Smith got his leg broken on the 322nd day of the year. And by the way, the guy who broke Alex Smith's legs was J.J. Watt, who's born on 3/22.
Who just retired.
March 22nd. And yeah, he did just retire. But a lot to say about J.J. Watt. He finished his career down in Arizona where the Super Bowl was. But the thing about 322 is in Jewish mysticism, Kabbalah, where this whole thing of letters and numbers comes from, Gematria, again, the tree of life, which is mentioned in Genesis 3:22, knowing good and evil, the tree of life, Genesis 3:22. There's a good half to the tree of life in Kabbalah, and there's an evil half, which is known as the clip-off, which has to do with sorcery and spell casting. And again, I'm no expert in magic, but the word magic does have a gematria value of 33. Again, 33 years to the day with Joe Theismann. And then 33rd parallel down there in Arizona with the Devin Booker thing. It did seem like some kind of element of sorcery and magic is present, and just having the right numbers and the right symbols. I mean, were you guys familiar with the Devin Booker thing as well?
Yeah, from your work, Zach. Zach, quickly for the audience, anybody who might not know, can you disambiguate between gematria and numerology? Just quickly, basically, for us.
Yeah. So numerology is just like working with the numbers and the date. Like today's what? It's February 18th. 2023. So you'd add up 2 plus 1 plus 8 plus 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 3, and you'd get a number for the day. Gematria coincides with numerology. It's actually considered Jewish numerology, but gematria is about taking the numerical value of words. And you put the things together. For example, Super Bowl 57 this year fell on a date with 57 numerology. 2 plus 12 plus 20 plus 23. There's different paths for getting the date numerology. It'll always break down to the same root number. So 57 would become 5 plus 7 is 12. 1 plus 2 become 3. But Super Bowl 57 was on a 57 date numerology, and it was on Abe Lincoln's birthday this year. And again, like I said, Abe Lincoln's 57, and he wrote the Emancipation Proclamation, which equals 113, like how Mahomes became 11-3, beating the Eagles, who also have a gematria value of 113. But then, again, just the word emancipation itself is 57. By knowing numerology and gematria, you'll see how often rituals come together and where, the date numerology will match with all the word rituals that they're doing in the date. This stuff goes on every single day when you're aware of this knowledge. Our federal government, for example, works by this code every single day. And that's why the elections are rigged by the numbers, the propaganda, this whole thing with the spy balloon, the whole thing with what they're doing in Ohio after the release of the White Noise movie where they used that town to film it. All of this stuff is big league ritual with agenda behind it. They're pushing us to a place we don't want to be, one story at a time. So
both numerology and gematria are in play and have some overlap, but technically it's apples and oranges. Like for example, 2023 is a 223 because of the numerology rule that you eliminate the 0, or is that kind of both? Or that's
kind of just like a numerology lens.
Yeah.
Looking at a year like 2023 is 223 is like through a numerology lens, because if a 0 is in the middle of a number, it's kind of like a null thing. It's not there. And to make a point about that, just in gematria, Philadelphia has a numerical value of 223. So does the synagogue of Satan. Of course, in Revelation 3, you have the letter written to the Church of Philadelphia about the synagogue of Satan. A big story we're hearing about this year is George Santos, who claimed to be a Jew but is not, and is Catholic. His birth name equals 223. So, and of course, we just had Philadelphia start off the year in the Super Bowl losing. And we did have the big ritual in Turkey where biblical Philadelphia is the weekend before the Super Bowl. So.
And Zach, we also have multiple ciphers. So there are ciphers that are more prominent than others, depending upon how. So there's a typical way of numbering letters. Of course, there's multiple languages. There's more than one way to do that. correct?
If you don't mind, just like putting up the calculator and typing in Philadelphia, for people who are not familiar, we can go over the relevance and we can talk about it in light of the Super Bowl and what they did just do in biblical Philadelphia, Turkey, with the massive earthquake during the 65th Grammys, if you want.
We'll do. Let's see here.
All right. So for the person who's new, these four numerical values are all intuitive. Philadelphia equals 101 when you just use the alphabetic order as you see on the screen with the cipher. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, up to Z, the 26 letters, 26. The next cipher, dark blue, if you put your cursor over that, just like highlight the dark blue one, it should switch the cipher down below. Or maybe just click on it. Or not the number, but click on like where it says reduction, the blue part. There. You're still using the alphabetic order. You're just using numerology. So Z was the 26th letter. Still is. The numerology at 26 is 2 plus 6 is 8. Y, the 25th letter, 2 plus 5 is 7. The next cipher, where it says reverse, is just running the alphabetic order in reverse. Z is 1 back to A is 26. And the last cipher is the reverse alphabetic order with numerology. So if you typed in like the word Christian, you would see it has the gematria of 101 in the same cipher and 61. If you type in the word church, you'll see it also has the 61 and 101. Think about how the letters written to the Church of Philadelphia in Revelation. If you type in Christianity, you'll see that it has the 65 like Philadelphia. I call Philadelphia the 65 city because its date of establishment is October 27th, the day leaving 65 days left in the year. So if you don't mind typing Philadelphia back in, we got the breaking news of the massive earthquake in Turkey as the 65th Grammys were ongoing. And I don't know if it was the same for you, but my notification from the New York Times about the earthquake in Turkey happened at the same time Sam Smith was on the stage with if you don't know who Sam Smith is, he's a homosexual man. He was on the stage with a transgender woman doing the song Unholy, and they were dressed up as Satan, and the lights were all red and black, and they had big flames on the stage. So in the time they're performing this right here, New York Times is breaking the news through our screens in our hands about the Turkey earthquake. And again, the letter, biblical Philadelphia's in Turkey. Letter written about the synagogue of Satan. And then also just thinking like, wow, this is the weekend before the Super Bowl that Philadelphia is going to be in. And by the way, the new spelling of Turkey, if you recall, they changed the official spelling of Turkey last year. The new spelling of Turkey has gematria of 37. If you look it up, Turkey changed the way they spell their name, and their new spelling name adds up to 37. Revelation 3:7. Johnny, Revelation 3:7. Who's the letter written to in that verse?
Oh, let's see here.
It's to the Church of Philadelphia. Revelation 3:7. Yeah. So again, why did Turkey recently change the spelling of its name? This is the kind of stuff I'm trying to show people. Spelling, spells, sorcery. Again, go back to the 16th century.
Wow.
That's the century the Jesuits are invented. And then in that century, you get heliocentrism. You get the new 26-letter English alphabet with all of the vowels changed. Again, the English language went through a complete remake in the 16th century. And then you got the Gregorian calendar named after the Pope. All of these things happened following the Jesuits. And that's why when I look at the historical timeline, I say, well, again, you look at the oldest English script. It's credited to a Catholic monk, Burfirth, from about the year 1000 AD. But then it's hundreds of years later in the 16th century that everything is kind of put into this systematic fashion. And you just look through recorded history from that time on, this entire nation's history, it all is by the numbers. And I've spotted from the beginning of understanding this that a lot of the riddles and rituals they do come right from Revelation.
Wow.
So.
Wow. Outstanding. I'm writing feverishly writing notes to myself about all that you've got going on here. Stephen John Nash, supposedly a Mormon, and yet he went to St. Michael's boarding school and Jesuit Santa Clara. Very embarrassing for poor Steve Nash. He had a black teammates that had an adulterous affair and maybe even sired a child by his wife. He is, of course, a far left, pro-gun control, pro-illegal immigration. As you just blown up the phenomenal the machination of Roman Catholic LeBron James breaking Roman Catholic Kobe Bryant's record there in Philadelphia, and all the numerology there, and all the numbers involved in that. And I don't know if you want to add to any of that.
Oh, and Zach, we've heard you say for years how African Americans, in particular, rappers, etc., would show up dead mysteriously at the age of 38. And I'm not big into gematria or numerology or anything, but I could not help noticing the barrage of 38 appearing with LeBron's big famous night last Tuesday night. So we heard a little bit of your stream on it, and you did a great job. But anything you'd like to mention about why so much 38 on that night?
Yeah, and it came right into the Super Bowl here. Yeah, and before I even talk about that, just right before I got on with you guys, so the reason I was a little bit late is I had up a sweet lady with something unexpected this morning. But I got a notification on my phone right before I got on with you that Mike DeWine says it's safe to drink the water in East Palestine, Ohio. Again, he's the governor of Ohio, for people who don't know, Mike DeWine. But he said it's safe to drink the water because they sampled 38 wells. And to me, that's a big no-no. Just before we go into your question, just from the day of Israel's birthday, for people who don't know, Israel was created in a massive Jesuit Catholic ritual, May 14th, 1948. And Israel came out of what was Palestine, and East Palestine, Ohio is spelled the same way as Palestine. But from Israel's birthday to the train derailment, which was foreshadowed in the movie White Noise, that was exact from Israel's May 14th birthday to the February 13th train derailment that's led to this disaster, exactly a span of 266 days, 266. East Palestine, Ohio in Gematria equals 266. So does Isus Hominum Salvator, the Jesuit motto. And of course, we're in the time of the first Jesuit Pope, Pope Francis, who's the 266th Jesuit Pope. And 266 days is 38 weeks on the nose. Train derailment has gematria of 163, which is the 38th prime number. But anyhow, for all the people in East Palestine who saw that 38 wells have been tested, to me, that's not a good sign, because 38 is a number connected to death. Death, murder, killing, RIP, all of these things have a gematria value of 38. We're talking about 38 in death every week in the world of these suspicious celebrity deaths. It's nonstop. Over the years, I've talked about how no celebrity that I'm aware of in the time I've been doing this has had more bodies connected to them than LeBron James. So LeBron James just passed the NBA scoring record in the 38,000 range, scoring 38 points on the 38th day of the year at age 38. And when he set the record had lasted for 38 years and 308 days, 308. Again, in numerology terms, like if a zero's in the middle of the number, it's just almost like another 38. And the record was set on the date April 5th, 84, which was 38 weeks and 3 days before LeBron was born, December 30th, 84. So you have this massive 38 ritual with LeBron. And keep in mind, special number is 38. This nation's capital, which is, you could say, the killing center of the world, is on the 38th parallel north, Washington, D.C. When Fauci stepped down, he stepped down after 38 years after being the Jesuit face of the pandemic. And again, words like Pentagon equal 38. Gematria equals 38. So does killing. Slipknot has the song Gematria, the killing name. English is 38, energy is 38. It's a special number, but it's a number, again, death, murder, killing, RIP. They're all 38. So the Super Bowl halftime performer was Rihanna, and Rihanna equals 38. And she started with a song, or the first song she started had the opening words about LeBron. And this is just days later, right? LeBron sets the record February 7th, and then Super Bowl's 5 days later. Rihanna, which equals 38, has the opening lyrics. She spells it R-I-H. Just R-I-H, and then you'll be good. R-I-H, and then get rid of that Y.
Yep.
There you go. And no, she also has the 65, which was another big number on the Super Bowl. The Will Smith movie came out 65 days before the Super Bowl. Anyway, Rihanna, the score at halftime was 24-14, right? 38 combined points. The final score was 38. The winning score was 38. And year after year, it's this way. Year after year, it's the halftime performer's birthday or name gematria that's involved in the halftime score, the total score. We document this stuff year after year. But 38 was the winning score. Jalen Hurts, if you look at the box score, it was his 38th career game in the Super Bowl. He had 38 pass attempts. He was trying to eclipse Joe Montana's record from 38 years earlier. If you type in the word gold, it also equals 38. The 49ers are named after the Gold Rush. When they hosted the golden anniversary of the Super Bowl, it was on the 38th day of the year, and it was won by the 38th state, Colorado, in the Peyton Manning retirement game. Colorado equals 38 like it's the 38th state. But this number is present beyond death rituals. It's, again, I think it goes back to the word energy itself. That's my theory, because energy is 38. Everything comes back to energy. Again, you study Hermeticism. Every shape, every symbol, every sound, every letter, every number, every color, they all carry a vibration that influences. I've actually been watching this white noise film that this train wreck's based on, and I'm still not finished with it, but there's a scene where Don Cheadle's walking through the grocery store. By the way, for anyone who hasn't seen this movie, it begins with talking about the art of staging a crash. But when he's going through the grocery store, he's talking about like this hermetic stuff that if you're not aware of this, you won't catch on to. But he's talking about how like the grocery store is the perfect representation of life, because every color's in the store, every shape's in the store, every letter's in the store, every number's in the store. I'm just like, people aren't even picking up on this. In that same film, when they evacuate the town, again, white noise is about a train wreck that leads to an explosion and a big chemical plume over this town, which causes the town to have to be evacuated. Exactly what's going on in East Palestine. And again, they use that town to film that movie. That's the ultimate mockery. And there's a lot more. There's so much more to say about it. But in the scene where they're evacuating the town, they just quickly zoom in on a stack of books. And the stack of books are about witchcraft, the occult, all these dark topics. And just using the most simple cipher. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, up to Z is 26. The most simple cipher. If you want to type it in as I go, Johnny.
Sure.
English equals 74. Gematria 74. Occult 74. Masonic 74. Jewish 74. Keep in mind, Israel is 74 years old right now, and this is all synced with Israel's birthday, which again was created in a big Catholic Jesuit ritual. Just to go off the 74 thing for a minute, type in Catholic, Johnny. Again, Israel's establishment date is the 14th day of the 5th month. And notice how when you run the alphabetic order in reverse, Catholic is 145 and 46. There are 46 books in the Catholic Old Testament, and there are 145 more chapters. And of course, you probably see the 35 and 46, like JFK was number 35, killed at age 46. Joe Biden lost his son, Beau Biden, at age 46. And then he was elected exactly 46 weeks after the Pope's birthday and inaugurated on the Pope's 35th day of his age. And that was the 59th election, and Pope Francis equals 59, like how Benedict stepped down on the 59th day of the year for him. And did you guys catch the joke with Benedict dying on the last day of the Catholic Pope calendar at age 95? Of course, when the Jesuits were created to counter the 95 Theses, which came from Martin Luther out of Germany, and then the German Pope's dead at 95 in the time of the first Jesuit Pope.
Fantastic, Zach. No, I did not catch that, Zach. Absolutely fantastic. Wow.
It's like MLK. MLK, who assumed the name Martin Luther after the Protestant Reformation leader, gets assassinated on the 95th day of 1968, 3 days before the Club of Rome's established. So.
Wow. Oh, my goodness. Let me get to my notes real quick. So Jeff noted in the chat that today is Geronimo's death date, February 17th, 1909. Geronimo, important to the Roman Catholic skull and bones frauds. They make love to his skull. They stole his skull, and this is all part of Johannism, is to promote the idea that John the Baptist, who was beheaded, was the real Messiah, And so this is why they shit themselves over Geronimo, and they have this fuckery with the crime of stealing his head and that being involved with the Skull and Bones. So great job, Jeff. I don't know if that sparks anything for you, Zach, but
it sparks a big thing with connecting the Jesuits and Skull and Bones for me. Do you want me to tell you about it?
Sure, please do.
Okay, so if you go back to the year that the Nationals beat the Astros in the World Series, we saw on September 27th, which is the day leaving 95 days left in the year, and the day in history that the Jesuits were recognized by the Roman Catholic Church to serve their interests. Again, all going with the 95 Theses. The Nationals were playing the Cleveland Indians on September 27th, and that was the year 2019. September 20, if you wanted to look up the box score, you could look it up. September 27, 2019, Nationals versus Cleveland Indians. They were still the Indians that day, and we saw that it was the manager of the Nationals, Dave Martinez. It was his 322nd game as a manager that day, 3-2-2. So understanding that Skull and Bones is modeled after the Knights Templar, and the Jesuits are the current military order of the Catholic Church who have the Templar cross in their logo, I said, I see a big connection here, you guys. All year that was the season after George Herbert Walker Bush, the Skull and Bones member, had died. He died November 30th, 2018. So this was the first baseball season after his death, and he's connected to the Astros and the Rangers baseball franchises. But all year we've been documenting these Skull and Bones rituals with both the Astros and the Rangers. And we knew the Astros were the World Series team in the AL. When they did this big ritual with the Nationals and the Indians, I said, aha. I said, this is the World Series. That's why they did this. And we had it pinned down to why the Nationals beat the Astros in Game 7. But going back to that game, again, it was Dave Martinez's 322nd game as the Nationals manager. Skull and Bones identifies by 3-2-2. He came into the game on 149 losses. If you spell out Skull and Bones, it equals 149. And we said, he's going to stay on 149 losses in this game. And if you type in Cleveland, Johnny, you'll see that Cleveland has a gematria value of 48. Now, they had a 3-game series against Cleveland, and they had to win all 3 games to get in the playoffs. So September 27th, 2019 was a date with 48 numerology. And it was 223 days from the death anniversary, or it was either the birthday it was the birthday anniversary of Geronimo. Okay, so Geronimo's birthday is February 17th, the 48th day of the year. It was 223 days from Geronimo's birthday to that game, which is the 48th prime. So if you just want to type in Cleveland again, we said, what a perfect ritual for them to pick up the 48th win over the Cleveland Indians when there's the narrative of Prescott Bush stealing the skull of Geronimo. Now, if you type in Washington, Johnny, again, they had to win all 3 games of the Nationals to get in the playoffs. And this is why we helped a gentleman turn a $10 bill into over $5,000 by putting some other games that look like locks in the World Series for Game 7. A gentleman turned a $10, not to encourage people to gamble, but this is a real story, $10 into over $5,000 on a parlay because they weren't even a playoff team yet. But what we looked at is we said, well, look, tomorrow's date's got 49 numerology, and the next day after that, their last game of the season's on a 50-date numerology. If they win these next 3 games, they'll get their 49th home win and their 50th home win, and they'll make it in the playoffs. And that's exactly what they did, doing it over Cleveland, the Indians, in the Skull and Bones ritual, paying tribute to Prescott Bush. And again, that goes back to where numerology and gematria combine. If you don't mind pulling the calculator back up for a second, Johnny, and just typing in Michael Jordan. Michael is 33. Well, here, just do it one at a time. In sports, the most important... Well, Michael Jordan's 59. That's also important. But Michael's 33. Now, if you just type in Jordan alone, you'll see that Jordan is 26. And you put it together, Michael Jordan's 59. So today's Michael Jordan's birthday. Today, Michael Jordan turned 60 years old. Yesterday was his last day of being 59 years old. And every single year, they're doing big rituals with Michael Jordan. For example, last year, the Bulls were 19-8 at home, and they had 4 home games going into Jordan's birthday. I said, they're going to win all 4 of these games, and they'll be 23-8 at home for Jordan's birthday. Exactly what they did. By the way, Kobe Bryant's birthday is also 23/8, and Kobe's name also equals 113 in the same cipher as Michael Jordan. But What we saw this year is the Bulls were 26-28, right? 26-28. And I said, aha, here's what they're doing this year. The Bulls are going to lose their next 5 games and fall to 26-33. They'll be 26-33 on the last day of Jordan's day of being 59 years old, which is exactly what they just did. And last night we thought the Bucks would very well win the game by 12 points, covering the spread, and get their 12th straight win, because in Gematria, Bulls equals 12. And if you don't know this, there was one day in history where Michael Jordan supposedly lost his jersey, so he had to wear the number 12. It was on that day in history that the Bucks just won their 12th straight game, beating the Bulls by 12 to set up the ritual for Michael Jordan. And again, this is why, like, a lot of my critics will say, well, you're using 4 ciphers, but I'm saying, yeah, you got to use these 4 ciphers to see what these people do every day. Last night the Bucks beat the Bulls 112-100. Chicago Bulls equals 112. Milwaukee equals 100. You learn these ciphers, you see how the gematria is used ritualistically day after day. The Bucks so often when a team hits a significant number connected to their team, you know that the game's in the bag. Bucks equals 34. Giannis, their star player, wears 34. They had to score 34 points in the opening quarter to win the game. And if you want to type in Bulls and just show them all the things I'm talking about, Bulls is 12. Chicago Bulls is 112.
Zach, you can share
Milwaukee's
too.
100.
You can screen share too if it's faster for you. I'm happy to do it though.
Yeah, I don't want to wear out your fingers, but notice also the 212. That's how many points were in the game last night. This perfect ritual and tribute to Jordan. 212 combined points, 112 to 100. Again, you learn this knowledge. You see how the games are perfectly rigged. The news is perfectly scripted, how it all coincides. And Johnny, I really appreciate that you like the knowledge, because I meet so many people that want to expose evil, but then they look at what I'm saying and they just think it's all a coincidence, and it just blows my mind. I'm like, how can they think this stuff's a coincidence day after day?
Well, you validate what you're saying, Zach, by being laser focused on the root cause of the evil, and that to me completely destroys any question as to what it is you're trying to do. Michael Jordan, of course, Roman Catholic. Jordan's 2 sons went to Loyola Academy. Jordan's net worth years ago was over $1 billion. Any obvious tells on his father's death, Zach?
Oh yeah. I mean, look at the intersecting highways where his father was killed. Route 95 and Route 74. Jordan came out to the song Sirius. Sirius equals 95. And then 74, again, it's that number that comes up again and again. Gematria, the killing name. We were just going through all the words that are 38. A lot of those. No, Sirius, the way the song is spelled is like the dog star. Sirius. That's the way they spell the song. Yeah, wow. So Jordan came out to Sirius. His dad dies at the intersection of 95 and 74. His father's name also, if I remember correctly, has a gematria of 237, and his father died on 23/7, which, funny enough, July 20, depending on what occult circle you're in, some occult circles recognize July 23rd as the Heliacal Rising of Sirius.
Wow.
But Jordan's father's name is 237, and he died on 23/7. I've always asked, is that even Jordan's real father? Because again, if
Big
you look
question,
up
the height difference alone. Yeah.
Right.
He's much shorter than him. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like, is that really his father? I mean, how can he be so much shorter? But then also the 74 is important too, because again, killing, occult, Masonic, Lucifer. Also, interestingly enough, Jesus Cross, Messiah, Gospel Parables, they're all 74. We know it is the Society of Jesus doing this. All of those words are 74. The word stabbing is 74. And on the 74th day of the year, we remember the stabbing or killing of Caesar in the Ides of March. That's encoded in our calendar.
I don't think I spelled that right.
Caesar's 47, like president, like White House, like government, like authority, like Republican, like Democrat. Yesterday we had the president addressing the UFOs, like how the UFO thing goes back to 47 and the 47th state, New Mexico.
Wow.
And again, people can't figure out the whole alien thing. I mean, it's got the word lie right in the middle, but that's your government. And
total distraction. This whole UFO thing, Man, it couldn't be any more obvious. All right, John Paul, do you have anything?
Yeah, just to throw in more details, Jordan, his father tragically died mysteriously, and some may implicate even Michael Jordan himself in that strange death, and maybe it wasn't even his father, so it wouldn't have been as difficult for somebody to do that. We also have his teammate Scottie Pippen, who lost his son at the age of 33, the same as his jersey number. Zach, you might know more about that. Yeah.
His son died on the first day of Taurus, which in astrology is the bull. That was just blatant when Scottie Pippen's son died. So
wow.
These are the caliber of sacrifices that you can, ask for 6 rings in exchange for, So
that's another thing about Jordan's father's death. So Jordan won his 3rd NBA Finals. And then 33 days later, his dad died. And again, we saw Michael's 33. You think about Jesus on the cross at age 33. Again, Jesus and cross 74. It's Route 74. NBA Finals also equals 33. So 33 days after Jordan won his 3rd Finals was the day his father died.
Outstanding. Wow, it's just too much, almost too much to keep track of, which is why I so highly respect, Zach, what you do. All right, let me go back in my notes here.
I got a couple of rabbit trails for Zach.
Go ahead.
If it's not time for it, it's fine. But Zach, did you have any? Did you take any stock in the connection between the NBA player Steven Jackson and the George Floyd strange
Great question.
Ritual that was done with the guy George Floyd? Is there a possibility that they were actually related, etc.? I heard all kinds of rumors and everything. And secondarily, I'm down here in San Antonio, Texas. I work at this little fancy restaurant, and Greg Popovich loves to come in. I'd love to hear what you say about Greg Popovich's career. He's obviously like a coach's coach. He's so many of his players who have played under him have ended up as head coaches in the league. The guy came out of Air Force intelligence. And certainly he's not out of the mix when it comes to the rituals that they do in the NBA. So if you have any comments on either of those, it'd be great, Jack.
Okay, going back first to the connection with George Floyd and the NBA player who, right after George Floyd died, that same player, Steven Jackson, came out and said, George Floyd is my twin. And George Floyd was killed in the time of Gemini, which is the twins. And for people who forget that, they said George Floyd was killed on Memorial Day, but we didn't hear about it Memorial Day. If you recall what was in the news all day on Memorial Day that year, we heard about it the next day on May 26th. But on Memorial Day that year, we were hearing about the white woman in the park who called the police on a black man who was bird watching. So we went from the land of, we were hearing about racism all day that day, a white-black thing, in the land of the Twin Towers, and then we went to the land of the Twin Cities in the time of Gemini with Steven Jackson saying he was George Floyd's twin. And you know what? I have not covered the Steven Jackson, George Floyd thing. That there are a lot of numbers there that went together with it. They've escaped my mind, but that was really the big piece, the astrological piece, just the whole reference to twins. And then remember, they said that initially the man was on George Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. That's the time the first plane hit the tower on 9/11, a date that the majority of the world writes 11/9. Keep in mind the name George Floyd equals 119, so does Civil War. And
Wow.
with regards to Memorial Day, the day that he was supposedly killed, Memorial Day is in tribute to what happened in the Civil War. And then after George Floyd was supposedly killed and shown on TV, all the Civil War statues got torn down all throughout the nation. And then the biggest ritual of all with the Civil War statues was the Albert Pike statue coming down in Washington, D.C. on June 19th. That was exactly 201 days before the Capitol insurrection that they just can't stop talking about, where the Confederate flag flew through the Capitol. And remember, 201 is a very special number. If you type in George Floyd's full name, George Perry Floyd, it's 201. He was killed exactly 201 weeks after Adama Traore, who was killed on the 201st day.
Sorry to interrupt you, Zach. Wrong screen share, Johnny. Thank
If you don't know, in Europe, they protested the names Adama Traore and George Floyd together. Adama Traore was killed in Paris, France, the land of the Jesuits, where they were born. But both huge 201 rituals. Then again, the Confederate statue comes down 201 days before the Capitol insurrection. Things that equal 201 that matter. Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Jesuits. Supposedly he died from the Roman fever. The Roman fever equals 201. Kind of goes with Event 201 put on by the Jesuit Klaus Schwab. Pope Francis is the first Jesuit pope, the first to live in Suite 201 at the Vatican. His name, Jorge Mario Bergoglio, equals 201. The name of his apartment that he lives in, Domus Sancte Marte. Suite 201's in the Domus Sancte Marte. You need an A before that E. You got it, T-A-E, and then M-A-R-T-H-E. The Domus Sancte Marte, where... Oh, you forgot the E. A-E. You just need the A before... Oh, you almost had it. Domus Sancte Marte, 201. Yeah, copy and paste when in doubt. Yeah, you'll notice it's 201 and 312, just like his name is, Jorge Mario Bergoglio. But yeah, this 201 is just omnipresent throughout history. Again, Ignatius of Loyola Day is April 19th. That's the day in history he became the first superior general of the Jesuits. That's the day the Revolutionary War began. It's also the day the Oklahoma City building blew up in 95. And, of course, Timothy McVeigh equals 201. Terry Lynn Nichols, 201. They put to death that day Richard Snell, who tried to blow up the same building in 83. Richard Snell is 201. Robert G, they're sure to have the G in there. Robert G. Millar is who radicalized, it's double L-A-R. Robert G. Millar is who radicalized Timothy McVeigh, so they say, who was a CIA agent. And let's not forget the CIA was established on the 201st day of Pope Pius's age. And their words in their logo, Central Intelligence Agency, United States of America equals 201. And what's their motto? The work of a nation, the center of intelligence, whatever it is 201 as well. Central Intelligence. Well, just leave it like that for a second, Johnny. That when the Oklahoma City, the next part of their logo is United States of America, but leave it like that because when they blew up, when the building blew up, you had Jesuit Clinton in there. You also had the Jesuit Governor Keating, who both of them went to Georgetown. But when the building blew up, it was exactly 243 days after Bill Clinton's birthday and 117 weeks after he took office. And again, if you just write in United States of America behind it, like the words in their logo, it's 201. By the way, you know what's awesome? January 20th, the date that the majority of the world, well, you need the Central Intelligence Agency, United States of America, all together. If you write out inauguration of the President of the United States, they say that's the official title of Inauguration Day. Inauguration of if you go to the U.S. website, the government website, that's how they write it. So the majority of the world writes that day 20/1. What else is funny is from July 4th to January 20th, if you count the span of days, that's the 201st day of the nation's age each year, Inauguration Day. And remember when Beau Biden died at age 46, exactly 201 days before Pope Francis's birthday. And when Joe Biden became senator elect, if you want to type in Limestone Road, his wife and daughter in 72 died in a car crash on Limestone Road, which is also 201. And if you just want to type in Jesuit order, Johnny, you'll see the 72. Biden was elected in 72. Want to guess how old Beau Biden was? Or, how old Joe Biden was when Beau Biden died at 46?
You got me on it.
He was 72 years old.
Wow.
And what day did Pope Francis become the first pope? March 13th, 2013, the 72nd day of the year. And if you write in President Biden, you'll see how it also equals 72 and 144, just like Jesuit orders 72 and 144. Georgetown did the Transition Integrity Project June 12th, 2020, exactly 144 days before the election, simulating that Biden would beat Trump Trump would refuse to step down, and it would lead to deadly violence in America, which sounds like your Capitol insurrection. And let's not forget that Georgetown was the first thing to board up before it happened. And let's also not forget that both Biden and Trump are Jesuits. And Trump, as soon as he became president, he went to the Vatican and posed with Pope Francis on the 144th day of the year. His wife also just died this past summer in a huge Jesuit ritual.
Yeah, she fell down a flight of stairs and he buried her on a golf course. Unbelievable.
And if you go back to their marriage, they were married in a building that has Gematria 201. The leader of the ceremony, his name equals 201. And then Donald Trump Jr. was born at the end of that year on the 201st day of Trump's age. But type in just Donald Trump real quick. I want people to see that his name has a Gematria value of 60. When his ex-wife died, that we were in the first ever Jesuit Ignatian year. And his wife died July 14th, which was the first day of the 60th week of that year, because that year went from the day Ignatius Loyola was shot with a cannonball to the day in history that he died. So it went from May 20th, 2021 to July 31st, 2022. Ivana died on the 60th week of the Jesuit Ignatian year, going with Donald Trump 60. Keep in mind, she died 45 years after their marriage, like he was number 45 in the Jesuit acronym IHS equals 45. But if you go back and look at the headlines that day, it was the third headline related to Trump, her death. The first was that Trump hinted he would run for the 60th presidential election. The second headline was that a 72-page conservative report came out against Trump based on 60 cases. And then the third was, you might get a kick out of the fact that the word conservative equals 72, Johnny, because if you go back and look, it was a 72-page report. And just like where President Biden equals 72, so does President Trump. But yeah, those were the three headlines in order. But even before she died that day, I said, see, this all pointing to why Trump's going to run in the 60th election. And the next thing you know, his wife's dead. So...
Wow, there's just so much. I'm going to have to replay this, and I'm trying to take notes for myself also to archive. Zach, this is why you're so valuable as a friend and as a guest. I'll
drop in a few more there, Johnny, real quick.
Sure, let me just highlight, and you're on, John Paul. Let me just highlight that Zach burned through one of the most critical unknown facts, the original April 19th. Everybody that has any kind of visibility on alternative media and digging into, as Zach says, truth seekers. Everybody knows April 19th, but nobody knows the original April 19th in 1541. The very first April 19th of worth mentioning is the date that Ignatius Loyola became the very first superior general. Love you for that, Zach. Go ahead, John Paul.
He was mentioned in Biden and the fateful car accident, there's numerology surrounding the details of that he lost his wife and an infant child. We have the image from his swearing in at the hospital on that big family Jesuit Douay Rheims Bible, the same one that he was sworn in on the Capitol steps so many years later to become the 46th president. Catholic. He's also from Scranton, Jesuit Scranton. And then the big 201 that we didn't mention yet was the 201 Jesuits left into Russia by Catherine the Great. So just wanted to drop those in.
Since Biden is from Scranton, let's not forget that The Office ran 201 episodes. And recently we had the killer out here at the University of Idaho tracked all the way back to Biden's hometown of Scranton. And then they even came out and said he lived in apartment G201. And remember, the killings were on King Road at the address 1122. So it's like, that 1122, like the day JFK was killed, and then the killer goes back to Biden's hometown, who's the second Catholic president, and JFK's dead at 46. Biden is number 46. And the day that they made the arrest was 46 days after the news broke of the killings in Biden's hometown. And for people who missed the whole joke of the University of Idaho killings for people who forget, they said those killings happened Sunday, November 13th. They also said on that same day at the University of Virginia, 3 football players for the Cavaliers were killed on Sunday, November 13th. But both the University of Idaho story and the Virginia Cavaliers killing stories, we didn't hear about them in the news on Sunday. We heard they were the top of the morning news stories for the Monday news cycle on November 14th. Now, the joke was, and again, remember the killings in Moscow were on King Road at the address 1122, but November 14th was King Charles's birthday. King Charles. And the King Charles who was king when the English Civil War happened, the people who fought for King Charles were called Cavaliers. Remember, King Charles, he was the son of King James. So LeBron King James played for the Cavs and won the only finals for the Cavs on the real King James's birthday. And then the son of King James is King Charles. And now you're having this big, keep in mind the word king equals 23, and LeBron becomes the all-time scoring leader shortly after King Charles becomes king. But on King Charles's 74th birthday, if you want to type in Moscow, it's Moscow the same way they spell Moscow, Idaho. Notice the 74 in it. Moscow 74, like killing. So on the 74th birthday of King Charles, London also equals 74 for the record, going with English and all this other stuff. But on the 74th birthday, we get killing stories. And King Charles is the first English monarch of Russian ancestry. So think about that, too, with the town of Moscow, spelled like Moscow. And also the Cavaliers killings. I mean, it's just such an obvious ritual. Wow. Those who fought for King Charles were Cavaliers. On the same day, mass murders at two universities that have a clear parallel to Charles. The stories on his 74th birthday, the killing number. And out of the Moscow killings, they had to say that the big clue in the beginning was that the women called a man named Jack 10 times in the middle of the night just before their murder. If you look into the last Jack the Ripper killing in London, it happened at the bar. Oh God, it was 10 Bells, I think, is what the name of the bar was called. Jack the Ripper's last killing had to do with the number 10. The other thing I know what it was. From the last Jack the Ripper killing to these murders was 134 years later, and King Charles I for the third is 134. So 134 years later, all of this. And then the story breaking on his birthday. King Charles I, most simple cipher, 134 years later.
That is insane, Zach. I don't know if you've heard this. There is a fantastic book by Stephen Knight that's on my shelf. What is it called? I think it's Stephen with a PH. Knight, of course, that's his name. I think it's The Final Solution. Phenomenal. Now, Stephen Knight supposedly died at the young age of 33. He did a phenomenal book, and what he gave great evidence for is that this was actually a Freemasonic cover-up, Scotland Yard Freemasonic cover-up on behalf of the royal family, because the heir, Prince Albert, was a sexual deviant who was both bisexual and having an affair with a Roman Catholic maid, and had sired a child. And so all of the Jack the Ripper murders were actually, what had happened was that maids and what do they call the women that help in birth? I forget the
midwives.
Midwives, thank you. Maids and midwives for the royals had the inside information on how this was against English law at the time, and I forget the name of the statute where no one who is Catholic is allowed to be an heir to the throne, and so the maids and midwives had tried to blackmail the royals, and so the Freemasons through Scotland Yard had the purpose was to brutally murder these blackmailing females. Now, the women were now prostitutes out of the force. They had nothing else they could do. They were kicked out and they were forced to be prostitutes. And so the brutality of these murders had nothing to do with any of this bullshit about myth and legend. It was the Freemasons on behalf of the Vatican letting them know, don't you ever try and out the royals as being puppets of the Vatican, or this will happen to you. So great book by Stephen Knight. Whether he was actually dead at 33, that's what they say, the official story. So
Just quickly, I went on a walking tour one time in London of the Jack the Ripper sites, and another thing they did was play games with the jurisdictions of the competing city of London and larger London, the jurisdictions and the areas where the police on each side were able to go. The murders took place on both jurisdictions, so this police force couldn't investigate that one couldn't investigate this one, and of course, City of London is one of the three big power players of the Roman Triangle there, with the Vatican, sovereign city-states within other countries with their own everything, especially privacy. So Vatican, London, and DC. So that's another one there.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm gonna have to get that book. There's a lot of things that are very interesting about the Jack the Ripper dates. And like you're saying, the Masonic cover-up, Masonic 74, Occult 74, London 74, Killing 74. How this is all synced up with King Charles's 74th birthday. I mean, I think that author came to the right conclusion. And as for him dying at 33, just in the dark blue cipher, type in Stephen the way he spells it, and then type in Knight. You'll notice the 33 in both names. Stephen 33, Knight is also 33. And, of course, knighthood has a lot to do with the royal family. R.I.P. to, hey, who could ever forget Captain Tom, who was knighted? If you type in the Jesuit order real quick. Captain Tom was knighted on July 17th, 17/7, and then died 201 days later on the 33rd day of the year. Tom also equals 33. And he was known for the Burma campaign, and Burma's government fell one day to its military, one day before Captain Tom died. Notice how Burma campaign's 56, in that same cipher, so is coronavirus, so is COVID vaccine, so is Maggie Keenan. And Captain Tom died from coronavirus exactly 56 days after Maggie Keenan became the first vaccinated person in the world for coronavirus. And don't forget, she was the first person. Do you guys remember who the second person was supposedly vaccinated for COVID?
William Shakespeare.
Exactly, man.
Fucking bullshit.
Make sure I got it.
He
Right.
died too, right? He died. What did he die? 101 days later or something. Who knows?
It was another ritual, but again, all of this stuff, man, it's all sick ritual. And the thing about Burma's government falling, when Burma's government fell, I said, my sweet lady's from Burma. She came over here as a refugee from Burma, but it blew my mind at the time. But I looked into it and I said, oh my God, their makeshift government was set up on September 27th, the day the Jesuits were recognized by Rome. And if you read George Orwell's first book, Burmese Days, right in the beginning of the book, he just mentions the number 56. He just throws a 56 right in there in the beginning of the book. First number in George Orwell's first book, Burmese Days, just had to throw a 56 in right at the beginning. He was part of the Fabian Society, which was established in 1884, 100 years before the most infamous title of his books, 1984. But
and the Fabian Society was after a Roman general, or maybe Caesar, that implemented a slow creep kind of strategy, where it was a slow advancement over time that would not be worn away with more significant back and forth. And so that was Fabian socialism, was sort of a slow creep towards socialism that didn't make any giant leaps that would be noticed by the larger public.
Yep, exactly.
William, I don't want to keep Zach too much longer because my head is spinning.
Your head spinning?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. This is why I was so thrilled to have him.
I just wanted to throw in, last night I was reading Susan Ford's book, or Bryce Taylor's book, and what was interesting is that she was programmed to be impregnated by Ronald Reagan to bear a son for the Queen in England. So doesn't that bring us in closer relationship with England?
Yeah, a lot of that lineage fuckery. I would say that's theater for the players, for the pawns, even the ones in roles that you tell them, hey, your lineage goes back to the king. Your lineage goes back to Jesus Christ. You are the The Holy Grail. That's the Dan Brown bullshit. Is the Holy Grail is Jesus had sex with Mary Magdalene. See that it's the divine right of kings. Barack Obama, but Black Barack Obama is related to all but one of the presidents, except for Andrew Johnson. It's all bullshit. But yes, that's the game they play. Go ahead, Zach.
Right, but I just found it interesting that it was Reagan, because so many things changed when Reagan got into office. They moved the swearing-in ceremony to the other side of the White House, facing the phallus, the so-called Washington Monument, and just so many things changed during that time.
Great source on that. Ex-Jesuit Alberto. Alberto
Absolutely.
Rivera, great source on that. Alberto's prediction is that when they change the inauguration facing the east to the west, that'll be the sign that the Jesuits are in total control. Go ahead, Zach.
Since we brought up Ronald Reagan, if you don't mind pulling back up the calculator and typing in his name, and then Washington, D.C., and then royal family, you should see a pattern we were just talking about. All those things equal 56. Of course, King Charles' coronation is going to be on May 6th, 5/6. And look at what day did Ronald Reagan die?
Wow.
Society of Jesus is also 56. So is Anthony Fauci. Big number with the Jesuits is 56. Things like mind control and all-seeing eye are 56. But Ronald Reagan died on June 5th, a date that a lot of the world writes 5/6. And
Zach, does the numerology have any bearing on the final outcome of the gematria there? 56 equals 11, 38 equals 11. Is there any power to that? Yeah.
Absolutely. You look at all the numbers that these people use, they're all 11 in numerology, right? All their big numbers are 11. Again, real don't get what he's saying. Again, 29, 38, 47, 56, 65, 74, 83, 92. All of these words break down to 11, which is the master number in numerology. And yeah, those really are their biggest numbers.
Wow.
And if you type in Washington, D.C., and Anthony Fauci just knows how it's the same in every single cipher. And if you were looking, you saw Society of Jesus was 56 forward, 79 in reverse. Never forget that the pandemic was declared on Anthony Fauci's 79th day of being 79 years old.
And, of course, Fauci's about as Jesuit as it comes. He's practically a Jesuit himself. It's a lay Jesuit, never ordained as far as I know. Zach, I don't know if you've heard this, but University of Pennsylvania, which we've got some sources as being serially controlled by the Jesuits, their own Professor Michael Heiser has made the astounding claim that September 11th is actually the birthday of Jesus Christ. So that just kind of fits in so much for us.
It's New Year's Day for the Christian Coptic calendar. I've heard that from a lot of different researchers. And to me, it makes a lot of sense because the World Trade Centers were on the 74th meridian west. If you just want to type in the name Jesus and look at it, Jesus equals 74 when you use the alphabetic order and 11 when you use numerology. 9/11 was all about 11. Again, 11 years to the day. George Herbert Walker Bush gave a speech about a new world order. That was September 11, 1990. Again, New York's the 11th state. First flight was flight AA-11. The buildings look like a massive 11. New York, the 11th state in order of statehood, and on and on and on. So
wow, that's about as good as it gets, guys. Let me go around the horn. George Bush, New World Order. Speech.
Yeah, 11 years to the day on that one too.
I'm not gonna do the audio for that. I'm just playing the background. Quickly around the horn for Zach. Bill, anything else for Zach?
Speech. He does talk about the New World Order multiple times, but he does have a speech from September 11th, 1990, exactly 11 years to the day.
Wow.
Well, and also during the Reagan times, Susan Ford was also a part of helping prepare Prince Charles, to become king, because they knew in advance that he was next in line to be king. So they were trying to make him happy, and the whole situation with Princess Di is pretty interesting too, because that relationship wasn't going anywhere, and so they had to get her out of the way, and because they were prepping him to be king, because as soon as the queen died, he was, so it's interesting during that whole time, those years they prepared him.
Here's a fascinating one, Zach. I don't know if you've ever done any of this. Great point by Grev in the chat. Vicarious Filii Dei in Latin. If you spell Vicarious Filii Dei and you take out the Latin numerals that have no numerology significance and only use the numerals that have number values to them, it equals 666. So that's just a great point by Grev in the chat. John Paul.
For anybody that doesn't know about that, Vicarious Filii Dei is the vicar of Christ on earth, what they call the Holy See, the Pope, the Roman Church in Rome, and that on its face is like for a Christian person that is heresy, that is blasphemy, because you don't need a vicarious experience of the Lord Jesus Christ. You have an open channel. That was his whole life and death were trying to replace a vicarious system of religious representation through the temple, etc. So now just the fact that they call themselves that is very blasphemous. But on top of that, if you have wisdom, as it says in the book of Revelation, you can calculate the number of the beast, 666. To close out with Zach, thank you very much again for coming on with us, man. And your work has been significant.
You're awesome.
To ours.
This is just the best. This is the best show
years,
to date, especially the ones where we were able to have you come by. Let me just address Pat also in the chat. Pat's worried about Gematria encroaching into magic because it's so powerful, it's so overwhelming, the numbers and the significance. Let me just say, doesn't matter. It matters that they see the significance. I promise you, the value of what Zach is doing is showing how the question thinks, the premeditation. You better believe, regardless of what we think, those who are pulling the strings absolutely carry this with great value. This is their connection to other worlds. This is their power to them. So
I got two questions for Zach, Johnny. When you're
go ahead,
ready.
John Paul. I'll shut up now.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you, man. So Zach, I always wanted to ask you, do you think they have multiple plans in place all the time? Because it seems like an awful lot of coordination, and there seems to also be sort of within Gematria itself, a lot of different ways to skin a cat, for lack of a better term. And I'll just ask that and ask one more question. Do you think there's any value in trying to purposefully disrupt any Gematria ceremony that you may be aware of by whatever, raising awareness or even into the field of sabotage? God forbid anybody out there would go sabotage these evil plans. What do you think about those
Great point.
ideas, Zach?
It looks so good. It looks so good. I mean, they've got to have more than one plan to make them come together. That's awesome.
And nobody's done more than you to do it, Zach.
I was just wondering.
And let me say, Zach's critique of people that have who are you talking about? Where you said, "Hey, listen, just go in front of the game and go use a bullhorn and wake people up to this stuff. You'll have tremendous more value than if you're sitting on the sidelines." It's a phenomenal critique. Go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, absolutely. For all the people who have that concern about like this is magic and witchcraft and it's evil, you're right. It is. We're exposing evil. We're showing how the evil people work. Like my goal is that these people can be defeated. They weren't always here, but they're here now and they're ruling, and they need to be stopped because they make me sick. So that's why I do what I do. And again, right there, that was me interrupting a ritual that needed to be stopped. That's a bunch of people under mind control. What that event was March for Our Lives. All these people gathered to undermine the Second Amendment. And I heard enough. I was sitting there patiently, and then somebody was up on the stage talking about how if we just had Democrats in office, these mass shootings would stop, and everyone's roaring. And I'm like,
holy
Joe
cow.
Biden's the president right now. What is wrong with these people? So I'd heard enough, and I had to interrupt, and it turned into a chorus of. There's probably I don't know how many people. There's a lot, but they all wanted to kill me for interrupting their ceremony. But that's what was needed, and the ceremony quickly ended after that, and it needed to end. So I think I did a good thing that day. I think I brought that to a premature end, and it needed to be over. Just to go back real quick to your point about Diana, there's so much to Diana, but remember she died in 96, so we're told, in a tunnel where no one saw it, in Paris, France, the land of the Jesuits.
Right.
But what age did the Queen end up dying at? She ended up dying at age 96. And what day did the Queen die? She died on the Virgin Mary's birthday. And what was the Queen's middle name and her birth name? It was Mary. And even on the show on Netflix, they had to get a new actress to play the queen, and her name was Mary. So you can see who's responsible for all of this. Queen of England equals 140. She died 140 days after her birthday. But when the queen became the queen, her father dropped dead by the numbers at age 56. Again, royal family 56, Society of Jesus 56. Now King Charles' coronation is going to be on May 6th. So again, from understanding this knowledge, you can see who really controls the royal family. It's that same Jesuit cabal that's controlling your Oval Office, and that's why they're breeding together and dying together and dying in the same rituals by the same numbers. And
phenomenal point from Surviving in the chat. Look, deciphering their shenanigans, deciphering their fuckery is the complete opposite of creating it. It's incredibly valuable. That's why we have Zach on today.
I'm glad you see it that way, because I have a lot of critics that think I'm helping add to the sorcery. It's like, it's never been my intention. My intention is to expose what's going on.
You're focused on the root cause. Go ahead, Bill.
Jake the asshole.
Yeah, no, you're so listen, you're focused on the root cause, always tracing things back to Rome. To me, again, is just we were covering guys like Max Egan. Max Egan says, "Hey, listen, don't worry about who is really behind behind things, whether it's the Jesuits or the Jews or the Freemasons. Actually, that is pretty important, and it is valuable to get to the root cause. And I keep saying, cut off the head of the hydra that won't grow back, and that's going to fix the problem." So, to me, there's no more important value there. So let me go around the horn before we let Zach go. Bill, you good to go?
Yeah, I was going to bring up the
go ahead,
but I think we do a whole show on him versus Jake the asshole.
Yeah,
so.
not that's yeah. It's we're going to let that go because that's just contentious. I would say the bottom line is to get people questioning the narrative.
Right.
Get people questioning the narrative, and that is incredibly valuable. We're always going to have detractors. And honestly, the more unprofessional people are, the harder it is for you to take stock in what they're saying. John Paul, do you have anything to close with?
Just going back to that, what do they do when their plans don't pan out exactly right, Zach? Do they have backup plans do they have contingency plans? And has there ever been anybody, to your knowledge, to like a professional athlete or something, just to purposely rebel against the system and screw up their plans, or do you not know of any examples of that?
No, the people who rule over us are evil, but they are also wise, and all wise people always have multiple plans in case the first one goes astray. So I imagine it's that way. And to make a point, it's just like when I was looking at this year's Super Bowl, I felt that the Chiefs were the better team. Andy Reid get his 269th career win, the 57th prime in Super Bowl 57, a lot of 57s with the Chiefs, 0 with the Eagles. But the one thing that was in the back of my mind that had me a little bit nervous was the Eagles' next win all time against the AFC was 112, and both Chiefs and Super Bowl equal 112. And that number has played in the Super Bowl in the past, but it was like, but this is about Super Bowl 57 and Andy Reid and Big Red, and they're in the Cardinals' red stadium, and we got the spy balloon story, which spy balloon has the same gematria as Super Bowl in nearly every cipher that began above the 41st state. And you'll see that spy balloon's also 41 in the same cipher, and they shot it down 131 days before Xi Jinping's birthday, so we're told, after they let it fly across the whole country. And people don't get it, right? The Jesuits have run China longer than America's existed. But
absolutely.
Again, they in the news, it went from Montana to Kansas City. It's like, okay, Joe Montana, the week before the Super Bowl, finished his career in Kansas City. So again, I look at things like that and I'm like, did they do it that way in case there's just like too much money on the Chiefs and then they got to flip the script so Vegas wins? Because a lot of times when they do have the big game, there's sort of a close narrative. There's one side that looks better, and every year it's gone that way, I would say, except for 1 year and the time I've been doing it. So, again, that might have been the backup plan in case all the money was on the Chiefs. But in this case, all the money was on the Eagles. So, of course, they're going the Chiefs. Now Vegas is winning. The ritual's better. And the media all year was telling everybody the Eagles were going to win the Super Bowl. ESPN since week 3 was telling everybody to place bets on the Eagles. The Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl. And think about all the people who took that ESPN advice and then had their heart broken on the last day because they listened to the lying media. But, yeah, I do think just from a sports angle, because that's the place for me to answer the question. I just see the way they script the sports games, and sometimes I'm like, it looks like they have a backup narrative here in case, again, money's too big on one side. So,
Yeah, a great example, I would say. I remember when they did the Boston Marathon bombing, and Jesuit trained Chris Matthews on MSNBC was floating trial balloons. Oh, this is tax day. Oh, this could be militia. Oh, this could be constitutional, blah, blah, blah. But then they decided to go with Islamists and this poor, whatchamacallit, Sarniev, right? Was it Sarniev boys?
yeah.
So listen, they absolutely agree. Well done. Great question, John Paul. Zach, what are you working on now? What's next?
Well, I'm over a year tardy with finishing my third book, so I'm still trying to do that.
Outstanding. Well, I'm watching, brother, and it was an absolute treat and a pleasure to have you on today. Hopefully we can do this again real soon. Really was an absolute pleasure, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Zach.
Good to reconnect. Thank you,
Yeah,
guys.
thank you, Zach.
Same here. Take care, brother.
Good meeting you.
Hold on, Johnny. Where's this going to be put at? You're not on YouTube anymore.
I'm not. Listen, I'll put this on my Odyssey, and then Odyssey is wide open. You can right click it and download it, and I would love for you to do with it as you please. Take it and re-upload it to your channel if you want. So
As if
I
you
gotta
have
go
any
sub your
time, Zach.
Odyssey page. What's your
Yeah.
Odyssey called now?
I will send you the link, brother. I'll send you the link.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Johnny,
If you say it out loud, though, I think I'm going to re-upload this on my channel. It'll be helpful for the people who watch the video to
That'd
come
be
follow you
great.
on Odyssey.
Absolutely. Resistance Rising is the name of the channel on Odyssey. And like I said, I'll send you all the info on it. Zach, what a boost it would be to have it on your channel, my friend.
Absolutely.
I will.
in fact,
I'll put the link for your Odyssey channel, Resistance Rising. Okay.
He's also
Thanks, pal.
Johnny Cirucci
on the Odyssey. I'll send that all to you on your email. Guys, I'm gonna do another show tomorrow. I completely booted today's show so that I can have Zach on. It's absolutely well worth it. I'll do another show tomorrow, guys. Roughly 1-ish tomorrow. So
Sounds good.
God bless. Thank you again, everybody in the chat, and especially to our dear friend Zach. Have a blessed day, everyone.
Cheers.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Take care.